Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of A New Go of New Home Sales. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthemum, and I am thrilled to introduce my guest for today, my good friend, Cory Charles. Cory is CEO and founder of Superhero Mindset. Welcome to the show, Cory.
Oh my gosh, Anya,
Excited
Anya,
to have
thank
you.
you, thank you, thank you so much. So excited to be here with you. Listen, it's cheating. I get excited anytime I get to just have a conversation with you. But in this environment, it's even more exciting. So happy to have the time to spend with you.
Same here, same here. I feel like you're such a light every time I see you, every time I interact with you. It's always such a positive feeling for me. And I think our listeners will walk away feeling this way today. And if you guys can watch this episode, I will highly recommend watching just so you can see Cory's outfit. So he's definitely Mr. Dapper, always a Mr. Dapper. He's definitely an on-point dresser. So give you props for that. It takes certain kind of confidence, especially as a guy, I think, to dress really nice. So you definitely got that swag. So
Well, I
kudos.
appreciate you. My grandmother used to say, "You're allowed to overdress. You're not allowed to underdress." And I knew I was coming to see you, so it felt like a red kind of day. So I'm busting out the red just for you, my friend.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. So, Cory, for those listeners who are not familiar with who you are, I would love to hear your story. Obviously, you have been in new home sales training space for a while, and recently you have started your own training company. So, I'd love to hear about your journey, how you got into new home sales in the first place, what your journey has been, and tell us about obviously your new gig.
I love it. Well, obviously you heard it in the name superhero mindset, and I am a big superhero fan, as you can see from all the things going on behind me. I have no shyness about my love and my fondness for superheroes, and the superhero story, the superhero journey, has been an amazing thing for me, and I feel like I've lived it quite a bit myself. I've had this conversation before, but I was one of those people that wasn't destined for sales. I wasn't one of those that you could pick out of a lineup and say, "Oh, that's a salesperson." I wasn't that over the top personality. I could be when I wanted to be, but that wasn't really me. I really just fell into sales by accident. And while falling into sales by accident, I fell in love with the idea of really understanding humans and figuring out what makes them tick, what makes them excited, what motivates them, what gets them to that place that we all want to be at, that place that our lives are just better. And how do we get there? So it really became a passion for me. And then the second layer to that was understanding, as I got into my sales role and started to embrace my superhero cape and selling, was giving back to the next generation of salespeople. And when I say next generation, that's of any age. That's people that are coming to the business for the first time, people that have been here for forever and just need a boost. It just really became something that was a undeniable passion for me that I couldn't ignore anymore, of really just giving back to the business, because the business has given me so much. And you mentioned it, I've been in new home sales, feels like a million years, but I dabbled in automotive sales, I dabbled in timeshare, I dabbled in door-to-door, business to business, you name it. And across the board, it really was about connecting to humans. How can we connect to humans on a deeper level? And where I really got excited about starting this new company and getting really excited about being able to give back to the business in this new way with the superhero mindset is understanding that when I grew up in the business, again, I wasn't really that typical over the top, that typical, I know it sounds weird because I have a red suit on, but I wasn't that over the top personality that you would expect from salespeople. I like to say I'm an introvert with a little bit of extroverted tendencies, and understanding that a lot of the sales training of the time, and frankly even today, were catered to that type of personality, and I struggled quite a bit understanding how I fit into that mold because I wasn't that typical salesperson. So where I get excited about where we are today is understanding that there is so much more that we can give to new salespeople, veteran salespeople, and everyone in between when we really dive into their personality types. We dive into how they actually interact with other people, how they communicate with people, and more importantly, what are their own unique superpowers. And when we can find out what our unique superpowers are and really, really use them to the best, man, we're on fire. So that was the long version of my intro, but I just get really excited about this.
So you mean that sales training should not be one size fits all?
I don't want to offend some people, but sometimes you have to offend people to change the world. Yes, I totally believe that. And forever, yeah, Anya, I've talked to you about this. You can see behind me, I have a million sales books. I've been to just about every sales training you can think of. And the vast majority are that one size fits all. Say this, do this, stand here, pose like this. And it just, frankly, just doesn't work for everyone. But that doesn't mean that everyone can't be incredibly successful in sales. And in my years in training, I've seen some of my best salespeople come from absolutely zero sales experience, not the typical personality. It all really depends on what we pour into them and how do we figure out what it is that we can unlock and what it is that we can really take that thing that they already do well and turn it up to 11. That's how we get some sales superheroes.
I hear you. So I was also similar to you when it comes to sales personality. Believe it or not, again, I'm also an introvert, big time introvert. So when you see me at conferences, this is like the only time when I'm out, and I am, I literally the only time that I'm out of the house. So that's why I go wild and crazy, because 99.9% of the time I'm here at my house, either doing this or working on my computer and not interacting with any humans other than my family once in a while. So I totally understand that feeling of like, oh, I don't know if I'm really made for sales or I'm your typical personality for sales. But I think sometimes some of the best salespeople are the introverts and not your typical personality that you would think of, because a lot of times those outgoing personalities, they end up being also very surface level and like tend to burn out, where the introverts, you need to give them a manual and they study the manual and they become great salespeople through training and not necessarily that natural ability. And sometimes I feel like when you do have that training backbone, it lasts longer. Like you get better long-term results, at least from my experience. What are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree with you more because I mean, just look at what you just said. And I was very much like you. I was given a mentor, big air quotes, and a training manual and said, good luck, kid. And I'd never sold anything in my entire life. I just happened to be really, really, I don't want to say good, but I was a really disciplined student. And I really understood that I have to take this craft seriously. I have to learn. I have to look at the ones that are doing really good jobs, and I have to really focus. And that created such a good system of habits in me as a salesperson that kept me going all through the years, that I kept having those habits of being a good student at every level of the game, even today, understanding that there's still a million things to learn. But look at what you said there. I think it's so amazing, Anya. If you think about that, introverts, I'm an introvert, you're an introvert. I think we've done okay. But what's really interesting about that is most people think it's the outgoing personalities, the ones that are screaming from the rooftops that are going to be your greatest salespeople. Don't get me wrong, they're phenomenal. But look at a superpower, just a surface level superpower of an introvert. Typically, they're really good listeners. Now, that can come in handy when we're talking to customers about their wants and the needs and their desires and how can we potentially improve their lives or at least take them to where they want to be. Being a good listener is a pretty good superpower to have. So that's where if we pour into even the introverts, right? If we pour into them with the right tactics and training and the right way to extract that power, we can really set them on a path to be some really powerhouse salespeople. I've seen it. You've seen it. I'm on a mission to make a lot more of them. That's the goal.
I love that. And so I think even the name of your company, Superhero Mindset, how we talk about uncovering your superpower, like thinking about Clark Kent, right? The dorky Clark Kent who turns into a Superman, right? Like in his everyday life, he is an introvert and he is not a Superman. But then when it's time to turn it on, he turns it on and he turns into Superman. Same thing with Batman, right? Batman is not a Batman in real life. He's your boring billionaire, right? Oh, so boring.
Tough
Poor
life.
billionaire guy living in the Batcave. But when it's time for action, he turns into a Batman, and he has all the tools, all the gadgets, and everything to make him successful. And like all successful superheroes, they always have that mentor, like a Batman, he's got his trusted butler. Superman, he's got somebody helping him along the way as well. So it sounds like for our superheroes, you are going to be playing the role of that trusted mentor along the way. So I'd love to know, how do you identify those different personalities? So are you able to like identify people pretty quickly from interacting with them, or how do you figure out like, okay, you're this type of personality, so you may need this training, or you seem to be in this bucket?
Well, first of all, amazing question. And if you don't mind, I have to Tarantino. I got to go backwards to go forwards to answer this question. So the first part is I just got goosebumps when you talked about Superman and Clark Kent. I did my own personality tests. I do them. I think I've told you this before. I do typically do them every 6 months to a year. I do my own personality test just to see where it's shifted and where I am in the moment. And, the most recent one I did, it gave examples, and it equated it to certain superheroes, which I loved, right? Of course, that's right up my alley. And the two examples that it gave me happened to be my absolute two favorite superheroes growing up: Superman and Spider-Man. Now, what's interesting about those two heroes, and you mentioned it, if you look at their alter egos, look at Spider-Man, nerd, I hate to use that word,
Right.
right? But
I mean, he
but
is, yeah.
shy, quiet, not considered a superhero type personality. But then when he puts on the mask, he's got jokes, he's got quips, he is just a bigger than life personality. Superman, same thing. Clark Kent, almost the same personality. Puts on the cape, the hair slicks back a little bit. I did that a little too much, but the hair slicks back. He's larger than life. He's Superman. He's all about hope. And I think that's a really interesting tell, that even if your personality is X, there is still that superhero in all of us. It's just figuring out exactly what it is to bring that piece out. So I think that's the first piece. And the second piece is, you're absolutely right. I kind of spilled the beans a little bit on it, a little bit, but not too much. But one of the things is, I mean, you nailed it. I am a nerd for science. I'm a nerd for psychology. I'm a nerd for personality types. So one of the things is, yes, for the most part, I can eyeball a personality type when I see it. We can have a little bit of interaction. I can get pretty close to where you are. But one of the things that we do at the Superhero Mindset is we do a whole heap of proprietary personality tests to get a real good understanding of, hey, this is your strengths. This is your opportunities, right? We don't call them weaknesses. At the worst, you'll hear me call it a kryptonite, but I won't call it a weakness. But here are your strengths. And how do we take those strengths, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're a sales leader, whether you're a VP, whatever your role is, how do we take your strengths, and I'm calling them superpowers because that's what they are. How do we take your superpowers, again, crank it up to 11 and make you be the best version of yourself? Because to me, that's the most important part of the superhero mindset. It's not a recipe for perfection. It's not something that I'm striving for, but it is a commitment to honor your full potential and what it is that you have to offer the world. And I think a lot of us are leaving that on the table. So I think it's my job. I've taken it upon myself to help people find what that power is and how they can better people all around them. And that's in their sales role, in their leadership role, heck, that's in their lives, right? With their family, with their friends. Everywhere we can impact people, that's the goal, that's the mission.
Yeah, so you mentioned sales role and sales leadership role. So I know you work with both. You train salespeople to be their best, but also sales leaders to shine in their role. Because typically what happens is you get an excellent salesperson and they get promoted into the sales leadership role, and they're expected to know exactly what to do at this point in their lives. So talk to me about some of the biggest struggles that you find new sales leaders find themselves in once they're put into that position. And what are some of the key skills that you like to work on with specifically new sales leaders?
Well, you're speaking to my heart, and yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed. I've been really, for a while, quietly passionate about this, and for the last couple of years, very vocally passionate about the attention that we give our sales leaders. Because you're right, Nine times out of 10, we take our top salesperson and we just give them a booklet and say, good luck, kid, figure it out, right? And that's very similar to how I grew up in sales. And I see it happen with sales leaders all the time, is that we assume that because person A was the top salesperson, they're going to be a top sales leader. And they are very different skill sets. It doesn't mean that you can't learn one or the other. They're just very different. And there needs to be a playbook. There needs to be guidance to figure out how we can get there. And more importantly, I want to make sure that we get our sales leaders there quickly. Because what happens is a lot of times they're on the right path, but it takes 6 months, it takes a year, it takes even longer than that to get them where they need to be as a leader. And I think we really, really need to understand on a fundamental level that it is, like I said before, it's a very different skill set to be a top leader. And here's the best way that I can describe it to newer sales leaders is when you are a salesperson, right? And it's going to sound, you'll follow me, but when you're a salesperson, your world is very much about me. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but it is about my sales, my units, my numbers, my production. It is about me. It is a very me-centric job. And that's the way it's designed to be, right? When you make that switch into leadership, it is the opposite. It is about everyone else but you. And that mind shift, that mind shift sometimes is very challenging, especially if the salespeople that are moving into that role haven't been prepared for that. And I think a lot of times even they think what made them successful as a salesperson is what's going to get them across the finish line as a sales leader. And that's not always the case. It's really about restarting the process. Now it goes back to, how do I connect to the people that I serve? Because really, as a sales leader, you're serving your team. How do I connect with them on a deeper level? How do I understand their superpowers? Right. And that's where we really get excited about not only going with our leaders and teaching them their own sales leader superpowers, but we'll also show them how to find it in others. And that's where we can really get to that next level of leadership. And there's one thing that I sneak in here, Anya, that just I think it's really important. So I have this methodology called the high five leadership, just because I love high fives, but it's a high five leadership, and it focuses on 5 really important skills that I think every sales leader needs to be at the absolute top of their game, right? So the first thing is being highly intentional as a sales leader. The next thing is being highly impactful. The next thing is being highly influential, highly impassionate, and highly insightful. And if you can put those 5 I's together, that high five, if you can put those things together along with the understanding of the personality of your team and what makes them tick and how can I make them the best versions of them, you're going to create an unstoppable sales team. You're going to be one of the top leaders in the country. That's my goal for everyone that I come across. I want to see everyone be great. And that's always been the driving force.
Love that. Let's talk through those 5 real quick, just so we can be clear on like exactly what you mean by that. So obviously being intentional, I think, is self-explanatory. It is very important to set goals, right? If I'm on the correct track here, like it is about being goal-oriented, knowing where you're going, knowing your destination. So I personally, I think this is such a huge indicator of a future success, is if you know where you're going. And I feel like lately, actually, I haven't been as great about my long-term goals. This is something that I need to do more. So I have my book of goals. So I'm going to definitely get back to writing not only my short-term, intermediate term, but also like a long-term goals, because once you have that clear, very crystal clear picture, it makes it so much easier to get there.
You're spot on. People laugh at me because I have, if you could see my desk, I have 1,000 notebooks. I am very much the one that I plan goals and things that I want to accomplish way, way far down the road and work my way backwards. Here's where I want to be. Here's the steps it's going to take to get there. But that comes from that discipline that we talked about earlier, that discipline in, hey, I don't have that natural gift of gab as a salesperson, so I have to be very disciplined in how I look at sales. The same thing when we talk about leadership. You have to be very, very disciplined in how you look at your leadership. What are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals? How are we going to get there? What are the actionable steps that we're going to take to make sure that we hit our goals? And again, that's one of those things where you have to adjust, because as a salesperson, for the most part, I don't want to, speak too broadly, but for the most part, we're in that what have you done for me lately type of business where we're thinking about this week at the most the month, right? But as a leader, you have to start to stretch that thinking. You have to start to think, okay, what does this look like over the quarter? What does this look like over the year? 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? What does this look like? Who is the sales leader that I want to be? Who's the person that I want to be? And what are the steps that I have to take daily to make sure I get there? That's where I really, really hone in on that intentionality. Are you taking care of your, I break it down into four different categories, Anya. I break it down into, looking at the mission. What is the thing that we want to do? Where do we want to be? Then I look at I call it mind mastery. So mastering our mind. What are we fueling ourselves with? Are you listening to your friends' podcasts? Are you reading the right books? Are you fueling your brain with the right things? Then I also look at this bioengineering. How are you taking care of your body and understanding that we have the ability to rewire ourselves if we're really intentional about it. And then that connectedness is the last piece. How do we connect to the people around us? And that can be in work, that can be at home, that can be, we live in this age of social media, that can be anywhere. But how do we get that fulfillment? And if you look at those four pieces and be really intentional about those four things, you're going to be in a really good place.
Wow, love it. So I feel like you're just like laying out a roadmap here, so it is, it makes it so much easier to follow through, because sometimes we do talk about like these big concepts, but it's like, okay, how do I actually do it? So let's talk about impactful, because impactful leaders, we know impactful leader from the opposite when we see one, but how do we get there?
So true, so true. Hey, y'all, so I'll give an example. A mutual friend of ours, my mentor, has been my mentor for many years. I don't know if she likes me saying that, but I keep saying it anyways. Abby Murata was really the biggest impact I can think of in my career, and I've had a blessed career with a lot of impactful leaders. But when I look at someone like that who was in a really good position, as the head of the sales training department, and saw this, somewhat shy kid come into the role and literally just said, hey, just try things. And sometimes you're going to fall down and scrape your knee, and it's going to be okay. We'll put a band-aid on it and we'll keep on moving. But always try, always push the envelope, always lean into what makes you you, and never be afraid to do that. That's highly impactful, because that has shaped the way that I stand on stage. That shaped the way that I present. That's the way it shaped the way that I even interact with my close friends and family. It's leaning into, hey, this is the person that I am, and I can't be apologetic for that in any way, but I can just try to bring that light to the world. So being impactful, I think it's exactly what we're talking about. It's finding that thing that makes every human on this earth special, finding that thing and helping them really, really pull it out. Because a lot of times it's hidden in there. We just gotta keep digging and keep digging and keep digging. But if you can help another human bring out that part of themselves that's sometimes hidden, man, that is a benefit to them. That is a benefit to the people around them. And really, like I said, I don't want to overstate it, but it's a benefit to everyone.
Yeah, so it's so interesting, because a lot of times when we think about being impactful, you think about yourself.
Mhm.
But in this case, you're turning it the other way. You're saying when you're impactful, you're actually bringing out the best in others. I love that.
Yeah, you nailed it. When I first started speaking, at least on in bigger arenas, I'm not Kevin Hart, but when I used to start,
Hey, don't sell yourself short. I'm sure there's going to be arenas.
knock on wood. But when I first started speaking to larger groups, being fully transparent, and one of the things you'll get with me is I'll be very honest all the time, brutally. But one of the things is it was very me centric. Again, I came right from the sales floor. So my version of impact was, I want to leave here and everyone thinks I'm awesome. They think I'm funny. They think I'm charming. They like my suit. And that was very much my motivation in the early days. And when that shifted to, I want to leave this stage, this conference, this room, this podcast, whatever it is, and I want the people that listened or read or tuned in, whatever the avenue is, I want those people to come away with not only feeling good, but tangible things they can do to improve their lives. Man, that's when the definition of impact changed to me. And now the mission is all about, how do I live that every single day? How do I live a life where I'm impacting the people around me? And that's become a very important thing. I never want to say that I'm more important than I am, but I've said I truly believe that it may not be me, it may not be a person that I train directly, but somewhere in my lineage there will be a person that changes the world, and that is my goal, is that I'm going to train the person that trains the person that trains the person that absolutely changes, the sales world, the world, you name it. There's going to be someone in that lineage, because I come from a very amazing lineage, and that to me is what impact's really about, is how do you affect the people around you. Now we're really talking about high level stuff.
I love that. So it's such a shift for me personally thinking about the impact. And I think it makes it so much easier to be impactful when you're bringing that in others. It's a lot less pressure on you, and it feels so good, right?
So
So
true.
I
So
love
true.
that one. All right, so let's talk about next one, influential. So again, when somebody is influential, right? Like when you see it, you know it. But how do we get there? I feel like, again, you're probably going to say something along the lines of it's through others, right?
Yeah, it's funny. You figured me out, and that's very much where my lens goes through, is through others. But influence, especially, we live in this age now of influencers, where that term can be misused and it can be misunderstood really, really easily. But it is very much about, I read this great quote, and forgive me, I don't remember who it's attributed to, but it is, a great leader will take you in a place that you don't necessarily want to go, but it's where you need to be. And I think that is so important to remember, because that is exactly what influence is. It is about understanding, when you come across that great leader, and you come across that great human, and it could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be a leader, it could be a colleague, it could be a lot of different things, but that person that understands, even if you don't understand your potential, that person that sees it and starts to nudge you in that direction, that's influence. I always say, when we talk about in the sales world, influence is the ability to nudge without pushing. Because what happens when we push, people tend to push back. My job is to nudge just a little bit, just to give you a little bit of nudging. And again, I'm going to give two shout outs to the same person on the call, but I remember sitting in a breakfast. Abby walks in and says, "Hey, I was not planning on speaking on you. I was very new to the gig and I was just observing." And she walks in and says, "Hey, you're doing the first session." Well, I'll tell you, it's a good thing I was wearing dark colored pants on you, because I was, whew, I was really, really, really shook. But I look back at that, and it wasn't, it wasn't done in a mean way. It doesn't wasn't done in any way to, put me in a bad spot. But it's because she understood the ability that I already had, right, and understood that it was going to take that nudge to get me there. And that was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I immediately got over that fear of, okay, we're here now, we're on the stage. And that to me is influence. That to me is influence, is being able to guide a person into a place where maybe I know they need to be and they're not there yet, but I'm going to help get them there a little bit quicker. That's a huge, huge sign of influence to me.
Yeah, it's like a great sales copy. Typically, people like they want solution, but they don't necessarily know that they want that. So you need to sell them on like almost like a small steps, and then like present the solution to them later, because when you present the actual solution, they're like, that's not what I want. They can see it. So yeah, so I can totally see how that is a little bit of a pushing, and no, not pushing, nudging. So
Edging.
love
Well, you
that.
know how we are. We're humans, and ideas sound a lot better when it come from our own brain, right? Even if
Oh
someone
yeah.
said it 5 minutes ago, if I come up with the idea, then it sounds a lot better, and it sounds like something I can do. The idea is, using my influence, is I'm going to get you to that same solution, that same conclusion that I've already figured it out. But I don't want to tell you that I figured out. I want to help you get there on your own. And once you get there, it's this aha moment of, that's what I need to do, or that's what I need, or that's where I need to be. And now it is a much easier journey for all of us to get there together, because I didn't force it on you. Again, I didn't push. I just nudged you. I knew where you needed to be, and I just nudged you in that direction. And now we're off to the races.
This is excellent marital advice as well. If you can
That's my
get your
side gig.
spouse to think that they came up with the solution, it was their idea all along, it's a win-win for
That's
everybody.
my side gig on the weekends.
Love that. All right, so next one is impassionate.
Yeah, impassionate, impassioned. I flip back and forth on how I say it. I don't know which one's right, but you get the idea. It's exactly what it sounds like. There's not been a day since I've been a sales trainer and a sales coach and a leadership coach. There hasn't been a day that I have not woken up excited about the ability to have the conversations that I have. There's not been a single day, because I know that if I can take this brand new salesperson that used to be a teacher, or this brand new salesperson that's right out of college, or this salesperson that's been doing it for 30 years and is a little rundown, right? If I can take that person and give them just a little nugget to help move their sales needle, that's going to get me really, really excited, because that's going to help them get to the place where they want to be, whether it's, getting that new car that they've always wanted, whether it's retiring early. I have a great friend, Eric, who talks about, it's either if it's sending your kids to college or getting a Gucci belt, whatever you want, that makes me really excited. So the ability and the blessing to have those conversations daily, man, keeps me motivated. I get in trouble because I take late calls and I take early calls and weekend calls, because it's never something that's not exciting to me. And same thing with leadership, man. The ability to now look at it from a 3D perspective is, if I can impact, there's that word again, if I can impact a leader, man, how many people are under that leader? If I can impact that leader, now the spider web grows, and now we're influencing and impacting multiple layers of people. So that gets me excited every day. And also, I understand on a very deep level two really important things in our role as salespeople, in our role. And again, I say salespeople, but I mean all of us, because marketing is sales, everything we do is sales, right? Every conversation is a sales conversation.
Right.
But in our role, we have a really big responsibility, especially when we talk about new homes. We're talking about, the thing that people are the biggest decision they're ever going to make. We're talking about probably the most money they've ever spent, the most nervous they've ever been in their lives. We're talking about really important things, and we're at kind of the helm of this ship, and we got to help, hopefully make sure that we're steering them in the right direction. It's a really big responsibility that people are going to move into this home, and that's going to build the next memories for the next 30 years, right? That's a really big responsibility. I never discounted that, and I never took that lightly. So that gave me a lot of passion to not just give people solutions, but help them find their own solutions. And now I know that you've landed on a place that feels good to you, which is really important. And the other piece is, being really honest. I come from a background of immigrants. I'm a first generation American. Even my brothers aren't even, well, I shouldn't say that too loud. So, but you know what I mean? So I understand that in any role, in anything that I was going to do or anything I will do, I represent a lot more than myself. I represent everyone that came before me and all the kids that come after me, right? So I take those two things really, really seriously, and I get to play in this space where I have a ton of passion about sales, about leadership, about life coaching, about just people in general. I get to play in that sandbox every day, which is, it feels like cheating, but it's kind of fun, and it gets me going every day. So that's a long way to talk about being passionate and being impassioned. But if you bring that with you to the office or to the virtual office every day, you're going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I think that one is so important, and it's a key. So I feel like speaking with you, that is so obvious how you feel about what you do. And it feels like it exudes from like all the pores of your body, it's completely obvious. So I feel like I'm also very fortunate, where I love what I do. I'm good at it. And I don't feel like, last week I was on vacation, and this week I'm back to the office. I mean, the office, quote unquote. My husband took this whole week off from work, so he's been bumming around here with the kids. But I never felt like, like I got to go to work tomorrow. Like, I got to do this. Like, for me, I enjoy doing what I do so much that it never feels like, I never have that like a Sunday night, like, I got, like, so I feel so fortunate that I found what gets me going, what gets me excited. But do you have a piece of advice for someone, especially in sales role? I think in sales role, it's easy to start off passionate and excited. And I feel like most of salespeople reach the point where they do hit that wall, they burn out. And it can be very, very difficult because it seems like it's over and over the same. Or, maybe you've hit a rough patch and suddenly sales slow down and you no longer feel like that rock star, and you don't feel that the praise and all those things that salespeople live for. So can you give us a quick tip on what can salespeople do to fall in love with the passion of sales again?
That's an awesome question, and you're right. If people do some digging, please don't. But a long time ago, when Facebook was just a baby, I used to be one of the things I was known for. I didn't have a ton of followers, but I used to bash Mondays. That was kind of my claim to slightly less than internet famous. So I used to bash Mondays about how they're so horrible. But then when I got into my groove and figured out what it is that really lights me up, what it is that really sets my soul on fire, then it became the opposite. It was like, oh man, I'm excited for Monday. I am pumped up. I am motivated. On Friday, I'm thinking about Monday. Not to discount the weekends, but I'm just really, really energized about what I'm doing. So that is a couple things that we need to do. The first thing is exactly what we've been talking about, right? Is understanding, hey, this is my personal superpower, right? So my superpower that I think I have, right? I think one of them, I think we all have a couple superpowers, and usually one stands out bigger than the others, but one of those is connecting. And I really appreciate the ability to connect with people and really get into the weeds and figure out their problems and figure out what their challenges are and work through this together. That really gets me excited. So understanding that that's one of my superpowers, then figuring out a way to live that in my day-to-day life. It happens that I found a role where that's exactly what I do every single day, is get into the weeds with people. But on the flip side is we have to understand that there are very different ways to be motivated. And sometimes in our lives, we can be motivated only by the external. It is exactly what you said, especially in sales. We get very used to the praise, we get very used to the awards, we get used to the shiny thing, right? And that can keep us going. We need to tap into that internal motivation, that motivation that gets us closer to our mission. Again, one of those four things that I talk about is that mission. What is my mission? What is my goal? My peers and my friends, everyone in my inner circle, they know that, man, if Cory gets a goal, whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever it is, if he gets a goal and it's tangible, look out, because he's going 1,000 miles an hour towards that goal. And I think that is a really important thing that we sometimes miss out on in life. So I love that you talked about that earlier, about having those goals, because sometimes we get used to the day to day and we clock in, we clock out, and we do the same thing every day. But what am I working towards? What is it that I'm trying to achieve? Am I trying to buy my first house? Do I need a new car? Do I need to send my kids to college? Is it just to be the best version of me? Do I want to be the top salesperson? Do I want to be, a fantastic leader? Do I want to be the best CEO on the planet? Whatever your thing is, it's always hanging on to that. And then again, making sure that I'm taking those little steps every single day. That's where these things start to live together. That's where we look at the intentionality. I make sure in the morning I get my exercise in, I fuel my body with the right things, cut out all that junk, listen to podcasts, do some reading. It's the things that we're putting in our body and putting in our mind that helps keep us on track. And then again, keeping that laser focus on the why, not to sound cheesy, not to sound like Simon Sinek, but keeping our laser focus on that why and why it is that we decide to do what we do. That's what's going to keep us motivated when times are lean, times are tough, when we're struggling. We've all been there. We've all been there in every role that I could imagine. But it's really being able to go back and harness that. Hey, this is the mission. And if I don't forget the mission and I keep that fire lit, I'm going to be good. We're going to be good. We're going to get through it. And that power, Anya, that takes you through dark days, that takes you through stormy weather, that takes you through just about anything you can think of, and you take it and you smile and you keep on moving.
Yeah, this is where it's so important to have the right people in the right role, because
Oh
although
man.
I was in sales for years, at the end of the day, it was not really what satisfied my soul. So no matter how I could keep it going, at the end of the day, it was not something that was going to make me happy on the inside. I'm definitely glad I made this shift and figured out what it is that actually lights me up. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the last one, which was to be insightful as a leader. What do you mean by that?
So this is my favorite one. My friends always know I love this quote. I bring it up many times. But to me, being insightful, that keyword insight, and insight to me is information beyond the obvious. A lot of times, as leaders, as salespeople, as marketers, as construction superintendents, I mean, I can go down the list of roles. A lot of times we do a couple things. Number one, we get really proud of the information that we learn, which is great. We should be proud of that. We get really proud of the information that we learn, and we cannot wait to share it with people, whether it's impactful to them or not. And we just, we do that word vomit. We just throw up things on them, and we give them all the cool things that are in our brain. We think they want it all, right? So for me, insight is that information that's not obvious. The things that, and this is where it becomes really tricky in 2023, where every person has a smartphone, every person's on the internet, they've all been to your website, they've talked to their friends, they've talked to, probably in a lot of cases, some homeowners, they've driven through the neighborhood. I mean, they've done all their research, and a lot of times they're doing research in the parking lot before they come see you, right? So it's understanding that stuff, that surface level information, it's good, but it's not what's going to really get them excited. It's not what's going to move the needle. It's that information beyond the obvious, the stuff that takes a little bit of work to get. We used to be the gatekeepers of information many years ago, where we would have the kind of the keys to the kingdom, right? We had all the information because there wasn't this reliance on smart technology, but now there is. So what information can I give you that is not easily found on the internet? What information can I give you that is actually going to really resonate with you as a person and resonate with you and your mission? Again, I say that word mission a lot because I do believe that every person has a mission. My job is to figure out what that is. And if I can give you that insight, again, I'm going to plug it again, information beyond the obvious, that's what's going to connect to your mission. And that's what's going to start to make this make a lot more sense as a next step for you in your life and your career, whatever we're talking about.
Love that. So tell us, Cory, if somebody wants to learn more from you, what types of services do you offer? Is it one-on-one coaching? Is it group setting? Like, talk to us about the different things that you do.
Well, man, so Anya, you can find me everywhere no, I'm kidding. But so a lot, my goal again is always impact. So anywhere where I can be impactful is very exciting. Of course, you can always catch me doing a keynote any chance I get. I love the idea. Some have said my keynotes are captivating. They've said they're energetic. They've said they're engaging. I'm not saying these things. That's just what the word on the streets are. I like to have a lot of fun in keynotes. I like to make it an experience. You're gonna get a little bit of you're gonna get a little Kevin Hart, you're gonna get a little Prince, you're gonna get a little Tony Robbins, you're gonna get all that mixed into one. So keynotes is always one that I feel really good about. And then we have a couple programs that I think are really gonna resonate with your audience and the people that we look to talk to as much as possible. So we talked about selling. I call that superhero selling. We talked about that a little bit. And that's where we really start with understanding who the salesperson is. And we tailor a presentation, and we tailor a sales process to that person and that personality, because it's not one size fit all, just like you said. Because if it was just like anything, there would be one floor plan for a home. There would be one thing on the menu at McDonald's, right? It's not one size fits all. There are many different people with personalities and tastes. So we start there with really understanding who you are as a salesperson, who you are as a person, really, and then we craft techniques around who you are as a salesperson. We do that for leaders as well. I talked about my high five leadership, where we do our leadership training. We focus on those 5 things that are really important: influence, impact, intentionality, insightfulness, and being impassioned. Focusing on those 5 things as a leader. And again, starting with understanding who you are as a leader and understanding your personality, your superpower, and really extracting that and taking it to the next level. You can catch me doing, I like to call this superhero engineering. You're probably seeing a theme here that I live in this superhero realm. Some say I'm just a big kid, but that's okay. Superhero engineering is about understanding it's like you teed me up for it perfect, Anya. It's understanding where you need to be in your career to be fulfilled. I was a pretty good salesperson, but I did not come alive until I moved into training and coaching. That's where I needed to be. And sometimes you don't know that, or sometimes you don't really have the tools to figure out what that looks like. So that's where we really focus on that superhero engineering to get you to a place where you're just ready to put on the cape and fly, right? And then the last piece is where I just really don't want to leave anybody out. We talk about sales, we talk about marketing, we talk about the business a lot, but this other piece called the superhero journey is where we really focus on those 4 aspects of life in general: the mission, the mind, the body, and the heart, that connectedness. So that's where we focus on just individuals and people that want to be the best versions of themselves. And that gets me going just as much as anything else, because I live in the sales world, but really I'm really about people. I'm really about just impacting people as much as possible.
I love that. So you guys be sure to check out superheromindset.com to book Cory for all of your keynotes, trainings, everything else. And Cory, if somebody wants to connect with you personally, I know you're on LinkedIn. What other social media, where do you hang out the most?
I am just trying to be a kid. I'm on all the socials. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Probably the most active on LinkedIn, but you'll catch me on Facebook as well. You'll see the socials for Superhero Mindset as well on all the social media platforms. We're dabbling in TikTok a little bit before it gets banned, but we're gonna
Hey, it's not getting banned.
Fingers crossed. Well, we'll come back to
Chinese government's gonna know all about Anya's outfits. Oh no.
We'll revisit this conversation in a couple of months. Hopefully you're right. So we dabble in TikTok as well. But so we're on all the social media platforms. Look out for amazing content on YouTube as well. As much as we can get out in front of people and really help shape not just the business, but shape just people. I've said this before, I'm kind of on this mission to better the world, as grandiose as that sounds. But one of my taglines is, we spread love because it's the Brooklyn way, and I'm from Brooklyn, and I never forget that. So we're here to spread love. So you'll see me spreading love on all the social channels as much as possible. And again, that's superheromindset.co, because we don't need an M in our name.
.co. I see.
Trying to be hip, Anya.
Well, thank you so very much for being on the show today. Again, guys, I told you you're going to get a shot of positivity, and I definitely feel like I've taken a few shots. So you've filled me up with my positive energy for the rest of the week. So thank you very much for that. It's been a pleasure to have you on. And I wish you the very best in your new journey. I think you're going to impact even more people than you have already, and be that superhero mentor to many more. So thank you for being on, my friend. It's been a pleasure.
I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Talk to you very soon.